So, and I have a question for you now. So, what are the evidences for the existence of God?
That's a great question. Some of the questions on the website that were not as nicely worded were like questions like, if an entity like God truly exists, why isn't there a single shred of evidence? Or, why are Christians such hypocritical idiots? Why are you? No. Why do you have to have a low IQ to believe in God? You hear a question like that, and my answer would be, why are you so fat? What? How can you say that? Well, I mean, if you're going to use an ad hominem argument, why can't I? I mean, if you are going to, instead of dealing with the issue on other clues, in creation for the existence of God, instead of dealing with the issue, you're going to attack the man, then I can do that too. Now, I'm not going to do that because I don't know, they typed this and you can't tell if they typed it with fat fingers or not. And so I'm not going to use that. I am going to give some, what I believe are clues, evidences for the existence of God. I get some of these from a great little, article from a book written by Peter Kreeft. I've quoted him before. Peter Kreeft is the chair of the philosophy department at Boston College, Roman Catholic guy, really sharp guy. And he has a paper called 20 Arguments for the Existence of God. I'm not going to go through all 20 of those because we don't have time. I'm only going to hit on a couple, and especially one that Scripture hits on as well. And it's the argument from design. The argument from design. Stated simply is that, the reason I believe in a God is that the universe, our planet, in fact, our very bodies, show evidence of really intricate design. Yeah, it's almost as if the universe was made in some way to sustain human life, that this planet was fine-tuned for us, and that just, you look at our bodies and they're a marvel. In fact, as we look out there in telescopes, we're amazed, but when we look down here through an electron microscope, we're even more amazed. And so that's the argument for the existence of God from design. It's seen in Romans chapter 1, verse 18. It says that the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. And what it means there, when it says suppress the truth, literally it means to push down the truth. There's something I can know, but I don't want to know it. And so I'm pushing it out of the way. And it goes on in verse 19. It says that something is the knowledge of God. It says, for what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For His invisible attributes, namely His eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made, so that they are without excuse. God has, in a real sense, written His name in creation. And when all those people, it kind of always blows my mind, the ones who say, when I get to heaven and I'm going to say to God, if there is a God, why didn't you give me any evidence? And I think God will say, why didn't you open your eyes? I mean, why didn't you look at what I've made? I've put my thumbprint on all of creation. I think, though with many of these evidences, they're really just clues. It takes faith. I can't convince you even in 20 arguments to believe in the God of the Bible, but I think it is very convincing just to follow the clues. One of the guys who did that was a guy named Anthony Flew. Anthony Flew, in fact, actually just died last week. He was a world-renowned atheist and had spent like his whole career. He was a professor at Oxford and a couple other colleges in the UK. And he spent his entire career kind of debating Christians and theists, people who believed in God. I mean, that was what he did. And he wrote tons and tons of books about it until about 7 or 8 years ago when he converted. And the reason he converted is that he said, I can't deny the evidence anymore. He said the evidence for intelligent design, ID, as you may hear it called, is so convincing that I can't ignore it anymore. I mean, when I first started out and I was debating people, it wasn't as clear, but now it's so clear that I have to believe. In fact, he wrote a book, I think it's his last one, and it was entitled, There Is a God, How the World's Most Notorious Atheist Changed His Mind. Man, I love that. So we have the argument from design. Another argument that is in Kreef's list, but is used a lot by a guy named C.S. Lewis, the guy who wrote Chronicles of Narnia and Mere Christianity, is the argument from desire. Now, the argument from design is out there. I can just see it. But the argument from desire is something that's hidden in everybody's heart. And I got to tell you, this is the argument that got me. This is what reeled me in and why I came to faith. And it's worded this way by C.S. Lewis, I think very clearly and beautifully. He says, if I discover within myself a desire that no experience in the world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world. He says that all of us, as we desire things, that our desires match up with real fulfillment and satisfaction in this life, but all of us can say that I have this longing for something that nothing can satisfy. Last week, Ravi Zacharias in the video talked about these existentialists. These people who their philosophy grew out of nihilism. There is no God. God is dead. And yet they believed that, but there was still something in them that made them long for meaning. They had to have meaning. There has to be more than this. Why is that? Why do they feel that? If all they are is this random chance over eons of time. Because God has hidden that in our hearts. I think every one of us can look into our hearts and realize I have a God-shaped void that nothing else can satisfy. St. Augustine put it this way. He says, Lord, our hearts are restless until they find their rest in you. And I think that's very, very true.